sure to check out Agelessgeeks.com for your figures and collectibles. So what is going on, my fellow collectors? How is everybody doing today? Daredevil19 here, and today is a video I would always look forward to making at the end or beginning of the year, and 2022 was an amazing year for action figurines. A lot of great stuff released this year, and I wanted to put more figures on my list, but I didn't want to go too overboard. So starting it off, I actually have 12 honorable mentions, and everything is in order, so if you want to consider this a top 22 list, you can. So coming in at number 22, as you can clearly see here, is the McFarlane Toys Ninja Spawn. This was so much better than I thought it would be. This has some of the better movement you get on a Spawn figure, and the swords are nice too. Still no alternate hands ever with a Spawn, besides the Kickstarter, but the regular releases never get alternate hands. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And moving on to number 21, and that is the McFarlane Toys REBIRTH DEATHSTROKE. This figure really impressed me, especially with how much you pay for regular McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse releases. But DEATHSTROKE here was executed really well. He has some of the best articulation I've seen on a McFarlane Toys figure, and he has a couple accessories, but still no alternate hands, damn it, what the hell? Alright, let's move on. And coming in at number 20 is the McFarlane Toys BANE. I love how the detail turned out on this figure, and McFarlane Toys usually does a kick-ass job in that department. This is a mega fig, so he did retail for around $40, but if you waited till after or around Black Friday till December, you could have gotten him for around $30 or maybe even less. The articulation is okay, but no accessories. Next is my favorite number, which is 19, and the number 19 figure is the McFarlane Toys Shadow of Spawn, and this is probably the best McFarlane Toys Spawn to date. I do wish they would make one without the leg boot and that arm gauntlet, but I'm sure we'll eventually get one at some point. But until then, Mr. Shadow of Spawn here is my favorite, and had to throw him in at honorable mention number 19. Now coming in at number 18 is the McFarlane Toys Killer CROC. I know there's a lot of McFarlane Toys in the honorable mentions, but I think this is the last one. But it is well deserved to be on my honorable mentions. I'm a huge Killer CROC fan, and I always love when we get a new figure of him. The detail on this figure is what really sold me on it. The price isn't too bad, but since he's double the price and double the figure, I don't get why we never get alternate hands with any of these mega figs. So now for number 17, we have the Star Wars Black Series COBB VANTH. The figure is fun to pose around, and it is a deluxe figure, so it costs a little bit more. But you get a bunch of accessories, and even though there's no alternate hands, there is still a lot of fun accessories to give you different types of display options. So now moving on to number 16, and that is, I think I lied about the McFarlane Toys thing. We have the movie Black Adam. But for real, this is probably one of the better McFarlane Toys figures. The paintwork on this is beautifully done along with the sculpting. Not a ton of accessories. You do get the lightning effects, but you do have some pretty good articulation, so I had to throw this movie Black Adam on my list. Now let's check out who comes in at number 15, and it is the Star Wars Black Series, the Book of Boba Fett. This figure is another good release by Hasbro. Once again, it is a deluxe figure, but if you bought it around the end of November through December, you would have been able to get it for only $10 through $12, like I did. Man, that is a steal of a deal. So continuing on, and moving on to number 14 in my honorable mentions, and that is the Neca Ultimate The Last Ronin Armored Michelangelo. Neca really did capture the look of Mikey from the Last Ronin comics, and the accessories is one of the coolest things about this figure. The price for this figure, and with everything you get, it deserved a spot at least on my honorable mentions. So now coming in at number 13 is the SH FIGUARTS Imperfect Cell. And let me tell you that this almost made it on my list, but didn't. Another figure did bump Cell off, because even though this Cell looks fantastic, it does have its issues, like a universal issue of some super tight joints, and that is always a scary thing because you risk breaking something when joints are that tight. I also did have a QC issue with getting two of the same open mouth yelling face sculpts, but besides that, I do love this figure because this was the very first main villain I did see in the series. The individually sculpted pieces throughout his bug skin armor is also painted black, so that is appreciated and you do get nice movement, but I couldn't put him on the list with those issues, but still a great figurine. And coming in at number 12 and 11, the last two on the honorable mentions, is the SH FIGUARTS Sakura and the new Naruto. Tamashii Nations really turned it around with this line because these two figures are just super fun with how much better the articulation is, and all the accessories plus the body mold on Naruto is great, and the entirely new body mold on a Sakura is great too. Much better than her original version. We only got to see that one time either at New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con. I forgot which event. As long as the line keeps putting out awesomeness like these two and being pretty much basic import prices between $50 to $60, that's more than affordable because it's the same pricing as the SH FIGUARTS Dragon Ball line. But that is my 12 honorable mentions. Now let's move on to the main event. My top 10 favorite figures of 2022. And coming in at number 10 on my list is the SH FIGUARTS Zarbon. This figure here caught me a bit off guard. I didn't expect to like it as much as I do, but it does have its issues, like the super loose hinges on the shoulder pad pieces. Another thing that did not turn out good is the cape. Hard plastic capes never work, and once again we see here with Zarbon why it doesn't work. First off, a big issue with any type of plastic cape is it makes the figure back heavy. Every time! Yeah, the sculpt looks good and there's shading, but plastic capes, to me, I think brings a figure down in my book. One last thing with the figure is he was a little higher in price, but he was an entirely new body mold, and to me the pros and the cons battle with this figure, and that's why Zarbon is this low on my list at number 10. And now, coming in at number 9 is a figure that definitely deserved and earned a spot on my list, and that is the Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Storm Shadow, the more classic version, and this is the version most collectors and myself wanted, and Hasbro definitely delivered with it. I love the accessories, but do wish they'd include alternate hands more often with this line. But his swords are sick as hell. The articulation is pretty much identical to like their first Snake Eyes. Another positive about the figure is the retail price. He's only around $25 or $30 at the most. So you're definitely getting your money's worth. Now moving on to number 8, and that is the MEZCO 112 Jungle Hunter Predator. And my goodness, I did not expect to be blown away this much by this Predator. I didn't think any other toy company could make some great Predators besides Neca. Then here comes MEZCO with their amazing Jungle Hunter. The detail is by far the best aspect to this figure. MEZCO impressed the hell out of me with this Yautja. They are now going to give Neca a run for their money with Predators. I hope to see a MEZCO City Hunter next. That I would buy in a heartbeat. Weakest part of this figure is definitely the articulation, but MEZCO really isn't known for having the greatest, most dynamic articulation with their figures. Sometimes we get a figure that has good movement, but most of the time it's pretty basic. And one other thing I did not like about this figure is the single jointed elbows. Like, why? Nobody likes single jointed elbows, MEZCO. But another really cool thing about this figure is the accessories. Another great thing about this figure. So many display options. But yeah, man, I had to put this figure at number 8 on my list. So next here, my number 7 on the list is the SH FIGUARTS Dragon Ball Super Superhero Movie version, Gohan. Alright, so Tamashii Nations just absolutely destroyed it with this Gohan. We have the 3.0 articulation, and finally, an updated adult Gohan has been released in the SH FIGUARTS line. This was desperately needed for a while now, and it does not disappoint. I love how good the elbow joints not just move, but look. They blend in really nice with the elbows there. Even the way they molded the open palm hands, such a subtle thing, but a very noticeable positive difference compared to other open palm blast hands. One negative about the Gohan is his head sits a bit low on the neck, so you don't see much of his neck in certain poses. Besides that, everything else is good. Plus, the $35 through $45 price tag makes it even better. And now, coming in at number 6 on my list is the Revoltech Amazing Yamaguchi Shoto Todoroki. Revoltech continues to impress me with each release because they continue to update their figures. Todoroki was engineered and executed really well, an extremely fun figure to pose around because of how insane and amazing the movement is with these figures. You can get this Todoroki into any pose you want. The accessories are great too, because holy crap! You get so many things included with Shoto. So you have the posing options and display options, and the last thing, the detail. The paint and sculpt are pretty damn good. One thing I think is a little off were the faces. I feel like they didn't capture Todoroki like how he looks in the anime. That issue is what kept Todoroki from being in my top 5 favorite figures of 2022. Alright, so now we're moving on to the top 5, and coming in at number 5 is the Neca Ultimate The Last Ronin non-armored Michelangelo. This and the armored were some of my most wanted figures in 2022. I kept checking local Walmarts and Targets until I found both figures, and I was unlucky finding them in the wild, so I had to go online and order them. The non-armored version is great. I like this one a little bit more over the armored version because I found it a little more fun to pose around. The armored version has the armor on the shoulders and restricts his head articulation a bit. The accessories make this figure even more fun because of the display options and the detail. Neca absolutely killed it. Love all the different colors they used, and the sculpting, like usual with Neca, was executed beautifully. This was easy to put in my list and easily made it in my top 5. Alrighty, and now for number 4. It is the Neca Ultimate Edition Shaman Predator. This was a Lost Tribe member. I couldn't wait until it released. I thought the Warrior Predator would be in my top 10 or even my honorable mentions, but nope. I don't need to go over the detail on this because Neca knows what they're doing with paint and sculpt detail. Another thing I really love about all these Lost Tribe Predators is all their unique accessories and weapons to each Yautja. Like with Shaman, he has some great accessories, some of my favorite I ever gotten with a Neca Predator, and I had so much fun posing this figure around, but this easily was getting in my top 5 on my list for the year. Alright, so now for my top 3 favorite figures of last year. Coming in at number 3 is the MEZCO 112 Brandon Lee's The Crow. Right off the rip, this is the best version of the Crow in 112 scale and the definitive version of Brandon Lee's The Crow. Even if you don't collect figures, but you're a huge fan of The Crow, this is something just a regular fan would really love to have. They captured the crow practically perfectly, and this is the type of MEZCO stuff I really love. You can tell they put effort into this release too. The detail is so on point, I swear they took the crow directly out of the movie and into this figure here. And the detail is perfect, and I don't say that much, but seriously is. As Cell would say, perfection. Weakest point to the figure, which isn't a surprise with MEZCO, is the articulation. It is pretty basic, but you do get some decent movement on Eric Draven. And don't get me started on the accessories, because the accessories are another perfect part to this figure. You are loaded with accessories, and the display options are pretty much endless with this guy. I also think they included just about every accessory you could include with a Brandon Lee Crow figure. But yeah, I knew this was definitely going to be in my top 3 favorite figures of 2022. So now let's move on to my top 2. And coming in at number 2 is the Samurai Animals Fury Toys Spring, or as we most know him by, Leonardo. And my God, I knew this figure looked awesome and knew I wanted it, but I was skeptical about the articulation because we have single jointed elbows, no bicep swivel, and so on. But you can still pose this dude around pretty damn well. Not the best articulation, but turned out a lot better than I anticipated. Just the design of this version of Leo is one of the things that easily sold me on this figure, because the paint is some of the best paintwork on a third-party figure, or just on a figure in general. This has some better paint and sculpting than legit figure companies you see in stores, which is insane. The price of the figure wasn't too bad, and I felt like it's still worth it because it's around $50, but they made sure to give you your money's worth. And they made sure they did with accessories. The weapons are actually sharp, and the detail on each accessory is on point perfection. This little third-party company figure has so many pros about it, and it makes me question companies like Marvel Legends and McFarlane Toys sometimes. But you can see why this easily made it at number 2 on my list. Now, let's move on to my number 1 favorite figure of 2022. Alright, are you ready? Are you ready to see my number 1? And coming in at number 1 is the SH FIGUARTS Sasuke, the new version, of course. Some of you probably guessed this would be my number 1, and some of you probably didn't expect it to be my number 1. But man, Tamashii Nations really pulled a 180 on this line. Even though the first wave of figures really weren't bad, but these updated versions, you can see the difference and how much better Tamashii Nations can make action figures. Sasuke definitely had care put into his engineering. The faces this time around so much better than the original 2 figures. They also give you the Sharingan face and the Rinnegan face, which I love. Even the subtle differences from this to the original is something else I really appreciate. Like the piece they made that you put the sheath into, this time they added a ball peg on it so you can articulate the sword and sheath around. Much better articulation and a lot more fun to pose around. But this figure was an easy choice to put in my number 1 spot, and you could see why. This line is doing great so far, so Tamashii Nations, keep them coming and keep killing it with this Naruto line, because like McDonald's, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. Also, Kakashi is amazing, and I guarantee he'll be in my top 3 list of 2023, but that is it for 2022. But anyway, that is my top 10 favorite figures of 2022 with the 12 honorable mentions. Hope to everybody enjoyed the video, and be sure to let me know in the comments your top 10 favorite figures of 2022. And if you want to put your honorable mentions, I'm all for it. Curious to see everyone's list though, so yeah, let me know in the comments your favorite figures of last year. There was a lot of good releases this year, so I know there will be a bunch of unique lists, and next year looks like it's going to be even better. I did make my most anticipated figures of 2023 list, and it should pop up and at the end of the video, and I plan to do a top 5 or 10 worst figures of 2022 list as well. And also, just keep in mind, this is my own personal favorites. I didn't buy every figure this year. I didn't really buy too many Mafex, or really many, or Figma much this year. I'm trying to cut back on collecting every single figure, so just keep that in mind. Everyone has their own personal favorite list, and I'm sure there was a ton of awesome stuff that released that I didn't get. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next episode of Daredevil 19, and I will see you guys later. Stay tuned for outtakes. God damn it, Zarbon, you... You're ruining my last shot. You know what, Zarbon? You just... Now, you won't even get a spotlight.